I am the editor of Apex Insights, which is the media arm of the Airline Passenger Experience Association. I am delighted to be moderating this panel today on what passengers may expect from aircraft cabins from 2030 onwards. So you will see when everybody introduces themselves in a minute that we have a really broad range of perspectives. We're going to hear from an OEM, an airline, an IFEC supplier, and an industry advocate for passenger experience. And I know firsthand that they have interesting things to say because I had time to go to their media briefings this morning, some of them. So we will keep it interesting before you head off for your drinks receptions. So first, I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. So we're going to go down the line, starting with Eric. So Eric, everyone knows you're called Eric now, but your name, company, and job role, and then we'll move down the line.
Yeah, okay. So can you hear me well? Okay. All right. So very pleased to be here. My name is Eric Ezell. I work for Airbus in the cabin innovation perimeter. And just to say a sentence on top, so I grew up literally in an airline family. I was both parents active for an airline, so there was no other chance for me than to be active in aviation. So that's how I grew up. Very, very happy about that and to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, I'm Takuya Matsuo. I'm from ZIPAIR Tokyo. So ZIPAIR Tokyo is a long-haul LCC subsidiary airline of Japan Airlines. So my responsibility is long-term business strategy, so also need to take care customer experience. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Oh, okay. I guess you can hear me loud and clear. My name is Tudi Bedou. I'm the head of innovation for Thales InFlyt experience based in Irvine, California. I'm actually representing Kurt Weidemeyer, who is our Chief Product Officer.
Yes, it's not your picture up here.
You know that handsome gentleman on the left side. I'm not as handsome as him. I'm going to do my best, to provide a perspective for in-flight experience for Thales.
Thank you for stepping in, Tudi.
And I'm Dr. Joe Leader. I'm CEO of APEX, the Airline Passenger Experience Association, and we also own Future Travel Experience. So when it comes to the future of travel, we like to think we know it pretty well.
There you go. So thank you, everybody, for your introductions. We are going to have some bullet points on here in a second, and we're very much going to follow those to kind of guide our conversation. So the first one is kind of based on the fact that we all know that aviation moves a little bit more slowly than a lot of other industries. And so 4 years between now and 2030 doesn't probably actually feel like a very long time. But Joe, I actually wanted to start with you. Sure. We all know from your socials that you are traveling all the time. And I wondered if there was anything that you had seen recently that felt new in the cabin that you've been like, wow, this is nifty, I like it, felt like a little innovation.
Well, watching the speed of connectivity get better than my home internet has been really impressive. Watching that on aircraft, you don't expect it. Like on a regional jet, when I had my first experience with United and their new Starlink product. Can't really believe it. A little bit surreal to be downloading basically everything in the universe while I'm in flight and having it work perfectly. But what I'm so happy about is the resilience and resurgence of more screens than ever in flight. It was long predicted that connectivity could mean the end of screens, and we're actually seeing more and more installed at a faster basis, and the quality, size of those screens and the lightweight nature, I believe we could see in the 2030s, we could see airlines like Southwest Airlines, others that had never considered screens, suddenly coming online because of the engagement and the amount of revenue they can make with that engagement.
Fabulous. And that actually kind of takes us into the next bullet point, which is, it feels like we are actually seeing a major revolution in IFEC specifically right now. And Nate, you can actually speak to that from an airline perspective because ZIPAIR is rolling out Starlink at the moment. So I wondered if you wanted to share a bit more about that process.
Starlink, so I think, at first, so I believe excellent customer experience, empower the employee experience. Today's panel discussion agenda is customer experience, how we can enhance customer experience. But also, in perspective of airline, we need to consider not only customer experience, customer satisfaction, but also employee satisfaction, employee experience. Okay. What I want to say is that, okay, so, I'm so sorry. Okay, so connectivity, okay, we ZIPAIR equipped the Starlinks completely by the end of this May. By the end of this May.
Across 8 aircraft, your eight aircraft,
Yes,
is that right?
yes.
Yeah.
8 aircraft. And okay, Starlink is providing not only high-speed internet, but also there are good experience for employee. For example, our cockpit member can use the internet for other information previously they cannot get. And also connectivity can allow our staff very smooth information from ground to the sky. So they can report something immediately to the ground. Okay.
Fabulous, thank you so
Okay.
much. Now, Tudi, I was at your press briefing this lunchtime, and you announced a very exciting new product. I don't know whether, before we go on to talking about that, whether there was anything you wanted to add in terms of connectivity.
Yeah, I could do two things. So tied to connectivity, as you said, we announced very proudly, Flight Edge Aura to the world this morning. But maybe if we step back a little bit before, we announced Flight Edge a few years ago, Crystal Cabin Awards, very highly praised, which is the first natively connected IFE in the world. And I would say connectivity, to your point, supercharges Flight Edge in the way that it's a platform that I would say, in comparison to the original or the, I would say, older, flight, let's say, IFE platforms that were not natively connected, for which connectivity was a little bit of an afterthought. Flight Edge actually is natively connected. So what does that mean? It allows us to bring very quickly, experiences to the IFE, and instead of going through very tedious acceptance, etc., allow us to test those, provide those to the airlines, being able to roll them, being able to test them very rapidly and deploy them rapidly. So that was the concept of Flight Edge, which has been now flying for 2 years. And this morning we actually announced the iteration, or the evolution of it, which is called Flight Edge Aura, where we bring, I would say, a new generation of seatback into the mix that is fully optimized for Flight Edge, and that allow us to go even faster. What we are seeing, to your point, Joe, is that we are seeing an acceleration of the innovation in the in-flight entertainment. I've been in IFE for 20 years, and I would say the life cycle of display used to be more like 5, 6, 7 years. It's accelerating. And so how do we do that? Well, we do that by, I would say, embracing standards. Okay? And so that's one of the paradigms that we bring. We bring that by embracing modularity, where we can very rapidly, bring evolutions of that hardware. And we do that again in a very conscious manner with systems that are really optimized for that. So Flight Edge Aura is for us super, super exciting, as you can imagine. And we are waiting for, let's say, the feedback of all the airlines, and be able to have the first system that will be deployed, and so that we can, think about it more.
Fabulous. Okay, so we have talked about IFEC, we talked about entertainment, but Nate, when you spoke about Starlink a moment ago, you were talking about employee satisfaction, and one of the things that you are doing in the cabin that feels a little more futuristic, perhaps, than what some other legacy airlines have got, is you've created a remote ordering solution. So do you want to chat about that?
So we developed the InFlyt cabin systems in-house. We call AltoNex. Okay, AltoNexus provide a passenger very free and stress-free, comfortable customer experience. Okay, we ZIPAIR is a low-cost carrier, so every item passenger can purchase. So when in aircraft, so if passenger want to buy something, they can buy through their devices. And all information is a notification is automatically sent to the crew member iPad. So crew member can understand, okay, what kind of item is required and where the passenger is seated. And also, online real-time payment is available. So payment data is automatically down the ground. So okay, this system allows passenger no need to push call button. Okay, please imagine in traditional full service carrier, if you want to buy something in aircraft, you need to push call button. And crew member visiting your seat and maybe may ask you. And you need to tell your request. For example, I want to buy some duty-free item and so on. And then a crew member back to galley and brings the duty-free item to your seat. And also, passenger need to pass your credit card. And finally, made a payment with offline process. But with ZIPAIR, new system is okay. Passenger just tap the smartphone. Online real-time payment is completed at the same time. So just our crew member bring the duty-free item to their seat. So as I mentioned, excellent customer experience empower employee experience. So some data shows 2034, 0.5 million workforce will be short. It's related to our professional industry. So we need to consider not only customer satisfaction, but also employee satisfaction. Okay.
Fantastic. So I hope what everybody has gathered from that, which is going to be my next point, is that as we are looking at today and we are looking at what airlines are going to be doing in 5 to 10 years, it's not about standalone products. You know, Kurt, we talked about how Aura can be used, it's IFEC, but you have a lot of stuff going on in the back with on the back end with operations. So we're looking more holistically at a digital cabin. And I haven't forgotten Eric. I haven't asked him a question yet, but that's because he is looking a little bit further into the future. And yeah, Eric, I wondered if you wanted to give us a vision of the digital cabin that moves forward into this more holistic space.
Yeah, thank you. I can totally agree and align with what my colleagues have said. I think the digital sphere is giving us the opportunity to really personalize the services for the passengers. As an OEM representative, I'm of course looking at the passengers, but we're also looking at the crews and at the airlines and everybody using that aircraft more holistically. So we'll have an opportunity, and from 2030 onwards, we'll see a large part of the global fleet connected. So you have a constant availability of data upwards and downwards. So that allows us to think very differently about how we use that. So going forward, more and more items in the cabin will be smart. Literally everything that you see one day will be smart and will be communicating to the passenger or to the airline. And will allow for, of course, a situational awareness that we don't have today for the cabin for every item, but also allow for individualized services. We also see the rise of more digital surfaces in the cabin. You see a lot already here at the show. That is also very interesting because it kind of moves the differentiation needs for the airlines a little bit from the hardware, from the physical, which will always remain important in the constrained space of an aircraft, to, let's say, the software-enabled areas. And that allows us for a much quicker reaction time to allow to tailor appearance of the cabin to a seasonal or even ad hoc need of the airline or for the passenger to provide a very unique service. And so this is kind of, the cabin is becoming a canvas. And you can literally differentiate it by digital means, by light and image, which will kind of merge with the latest technologies. You see a merging of light and image. So that allows you to play with the surfaces for differentiation, for ambience, for of course, for advertisement, for information. And of course, also for the topics that were discussed on that panel, you can also enhance accessibility, and with more data, you can also enhance the sustainability of your products, because you know more about what your product does, how resources on board of the aircraft are being used. And we can go maybe later in the direction of the catering. That's a good example, I think. Yeah, so I think there's a lot coming up to the digital means that come on top of the other trends that we all see.
Yeah. And could we do a session on the future of cabins without talking about AI? I don't think so. So, Tudi, you guys are doing some really interesting stuff with AI. I don't know whether you're able to talk about that.
Yes, I mean, I can talk about it for many hours, and we don't have that time. Something I wanted to mention, which I think is important, from a pure IFE perspective, those platforms, in particular ours, is already, I would say, completely digital native capable. So that level of customization that you were speaking already exists. Now, the challenge we still have and that we are trying to resolve, for example, working on new communication standards, is to be able to utilize the IFE as one of those smart hubs to enlarge that smart cabin-ness, okay, to a much broader scope. In other words, be able to interconnect not only the in-flight entertainment, but with the galley, with the lavatories, with all those different subsystems, what we call the cabin IoT, essentially, and be able to feed from each other with information, with communication, be able to provide, I would say, some level of maintenance capability, predictive maintenance, customization, personalization, etc. It, I think, remains a work in progress. We were speaking about 2030. I think by 2030, new standards will exist. We all need to be working on those to be able to address, I would say, the cybersecurity aspects, but also those new communication standards to create, again, an even more powerful cabin, okay? Because this is really what passengers need, this is what crew members need, this is what everybody in the industry needs, right? And I think, again, the in-flight entertainment is one of those nodes. It can probably do a lot of this, especially, for example, by doing some level of data processing at the edge. You spoke about AI. We already have demonstrators that, I encourage people to go in our booth to showcase how we can already do some level of AI and machine learning at the edge. Now, this is, I think, just the beginning of that revolution. This is really like exciting times, I would say.
It is mega exciting times. Now, Joe, I'm going to ask you to zoom out a little bit. You talked about FTE and how you're kind of, looking at future travel. We are at this, what seems like this new frontier, or with a connected cabin. Where do we go now with all of this at our fingertips?
Well, I think there's the customer-facing portion of AI, and there's so much more. When you get to cybersecurity, I think that we have a vulnerability from AI, and that an AI agent attempting to break cybersecurity, the only way to fight it properly is not to have set security parameters, but to actually have an AI agent that's part of the aircraft, on the aircraft, in its security system to counteract what will be done in the future. But focusing on the customer, so rather than getting that far off tangent as we can go.
It's interesting stuff.
It's all fun, yeah. It's like AI, good or evil, we'll see. From a customer perspective, it will seem like the ultimate personalization experience. Yes. You'll have real time on the screen, and perhaps, this is a little bit far-fetched, but if you ever hear on an aircraft, it sounds like this, and like we're doing so-and-so altitude, and blah, 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 blah. It could be said so much more clearly if we utilized automated AI agents in the middle, so that they could speak in a very clear accent that everyone can understand. And if someone does not speak the native language of the majority of the people on the aircraft, it could speak in their language as well. But most importantly, for everyone on their screens in front of them, they'll be able to see real-time information and complementary information to that. So for example, we're going through some turbulence. The intelligence of a system to automatically display a radar area of where the plane is going through or towards or around might be the right information, the right time, and the right way. And also, even going further, AI agents that are taking care of the customer and thinking about their missed connection flight because of a rerouting or weather delay. that type of information will show up on your screen and on your mobile device simultaneously. So those types of touches are good. And then there's the kind of personalization, which some people will call AI. It's not. It's just personalization. It's how it's served and developed, which could leverage artificial intelligence. But this is where our advertising and our connecting to our customers will resonate much more strongly and pay for the entire infrastructure around that customer.
That was brilliant. You have actually led us beautifully on to our next bullet point, which I think is, we're going to focus on accessibility first. And Nate and I were furiously nodding when you were talking about translation, because in our prep call, when I asked Nate to look forward in the future, that was one of the things you picked up on. But you also said from a workforce perspective. So do you want to share?
Okay, so as he mentioned, so currently, if we want to recruit cabin member, crew members, so I think we need to require language. I'm Japanese, so I'm good at using Japanese. So my company is Japanese. So our company needs to require Japanese and English. But currently, Starlink will change dramatically. So if we, and AI also dramatically improve for translation function. So if we use Starlink and real-time translation, we can recruit staff from all over the world, not require language. I think it's very amazing and a kind of diversified. So I think so 2040, maybe we can hire every people from all over the world. We never choose who can speak English or who can speak Japanese. We can hire who has a skill, who has a highly educated. I think it's very amazing.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a really interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing, Nate. Right, where are we? And so, Eric, we were talking about accessibility as well. You hinted at it in an earlier, when you were talking about the digital cabin and how it's going to increase accessibility. I wondered if you wanted to dive a bit deeper into some more of the use cases there.
Yeah, well, thank you. So accessibility is really at the core of our innovation activities for several years already, and we're learning every day. We're learning every day because we're engaging with the passenger groups that tell us every day, on our ideas, on our proposals, what works in their views and what doesn't so much. So that's really an ongoing activity that, for us, the topic is how can we design a cabin going forward that serves the needs of as many passengers as possible. We know that roughly 1.3 billion people worldwide have a reduced mobility in certain kinds. It's not only the wheelchair, it's low visibility, it's hearing impairment. So that's really important that we are clear about how can we support them on the journey. And it's obvious that the wheelchair is a challenge, let's say, for the passengers in the airlines today. So that is with all the high requirements that we have in aviation, but it's definitely on the radar. How can we enable somebody to stay in their personal wheelchair in the future, in a highly tailored wheelchair, so that we enable them to fly where they maybe weren't able to fly or under difficult circumstances today. So that's definitely one. We look into a lot of partnerships in this field. We look into, of course, also the onboard wheelchair. And on our booth, you see a lot of those solutions that we're discussing. We're looking into the PRM lavatories. That is now also driven by the US regulation with the Department of Transportation and the rule that this is coming forward in the early 2030s. And that is always, for us, let's say, a foundation on which we want to go further. So it's not only about providing the space in that lavatory sufficient to meet the requirements coming up, but it's about the question, what can we do more? Can we do something that you can connect by speech or by signages with the lavatory? How can we use the placards we have in the cabin with the information when Braille is not the solution for everybody, because not everybody who's blind or low vision today can read the braille and it's language specific. So we're looking even in a non-competitive field with our friends from other OEMs into how can we harmonize, because we're looking into kind of making things easier, and this is clearly a field where collaboration is key. So we need to harmonize this among the industry. That's clearly an ambition that we have. For instance, on the placards, on the pictograms that we use in the cabin, and a non-regulatory. And then we're also looking at digital fields. The connectivity of the aircraft allows us to enhance accessibility as well, because it allows us, people are using more and more their smartphones to navigate in fields where they maybe, when you cannot see. And that's really important for us. So we're testing how can we deploy markers in the cabin that help you navigate autonomously to increase the autonomy of somebody, not being dependent on their neighbor or on the cabin crews all the time, and to answer the most important questions. Where's my seat? How do I find the lavatory? Is the lavatory occupied? All these things. This is progressively going forward information that we can provide automatically to personal devices of passengers. Again, this is even an easier starting point because you do not physically change the cabin besides the connectivity part. So we're looking in all these angles and are always moving forward in collaboration with the passengers, with the industry, with the friends and partners at OEMs and suppliers, and how to do things better. And you've maybe seen the previous panel where my colleague Hans was sharing some more insights on that, but I'm happy to invite you to the Airbus booth to see some of the solutions.
Thank you for that, Eric. Brilliant. And while we are on accessibility in terms of the digital cabin, 2D, I know Thales has done some cool stuff there already. In 2024, you won a Crystal Cabin Award for your user interface for low vision or blind passengers.
Correct.
And you're also the first to introduce a signing avatar.
Correct. Yes, so you have a very good memory.
There you go. I did my research. So what are you doing with those? How have they developed? And is there anything else coming down the pipe that you can tease?
Absolutely. There's always something new at Thales. I would say it's been really like a journey for Thales. When I remember back almost like 20 years ago when the very first closed caption requirements came, and then somehow for maybe like 15 years, there was very little progress around accessibility. And somehow it's really started to become, something that I think the entire industry realized that we needed to do better. We started actually that same journey, and this is what led us to what we call the visually impaired UI, which is a UI designed completely from the ground up with, I would say, the target to provide an IFE user interface for blind passengers. Not a UI for people with some level of needs, no, for blind passengers. It was definitely, there was a lot for us to learn. We had to almost like unlearn what we had learned from previous intent and redesign that UI from the ground up. We are very glad to say that it's now flying on 2 major international airlines, with a third one coming in the next few months and more to come, which really shows 2 things. It shows that I think we have met the objective, and then 2, that airlines really realize that they need to be part of this journey and provide the ability for passengers to have access to in-flight entertainment. There is really a lot we can provide to them. So we did that, I would say, with again a particular focus for, as I said, blind passengers. But then, what about all the other needs that we need to address? So we started to look at, for example, harder hearing passengers. And as you said, we developed, let's say, the sign language avatar for people that would have this kind of needs, right? Speaking in sign language or being able to recognize. But also worked with a third-party company to provide a personalized in-flight entertainment audio experience. Okay, and we have, I would say, several demonstrators that allow a user at home to create their own profile in a quiet environment, create their profile, be able to, for example, upload it to the airplane, and then benefit from this optimized audio when they utilize the IFE. Okay, I participated actually last week to a dedicated workshop from a North American airline to look at what we were able to also provide, for example, for like physical needs, right? Because it's great to have a visually impaired UI, but for example, if you cannot touch the screen, then you haven't answered yet to the problem, right, or to the challenge. So embracing pet devices was one of the findings, right? Because all the passengers, I would say most of us, have actually a phone, and that allows us, after it's paired with the IFE, to be able to utilize the exact same gestures to be able to access the in-flight entertainment. So these are things that we need to continue to investigate and continue to, I would say, close the gap to provide a truly diverse experience. I think there is more to come. You were asking me about like what do we have this year? Well, actually, we have for the first time a real-time passenger announcement audio transcribe translate that we are showcasing on our booth. What does that mean? Is that the Flight Edge onboard data center is getting real-time, audio from the cabin system. The onboard data center transcribes it into text and then is able to send to either pet devices or to the IFE displays what is being said by the crew member, which is something I remember discussing with Airbus maybe like 15 years ago. It was a dream back then. Now there is technology to be able to do that in real time, okay? And then be able to even like translate in Japanese and in any language that you can think of. So all those capabilities are now becoming reality, right? And we are about to bring them to the world.
That's amazing. I love that, Joe, Nate, you hit the nail on the head then with translation coming in the future. Fabulous. Okay, and Joe, we're doing some good stuff. It's lovely to hear that we're all thinking about it, but we're not perfect. So what do you think are still the biggest challenges or pain points when it comes to accessibility for passengers?
Well, ultimately, I think our airlines need to step up their game and go beyond what is required by the regulations and think about the humanity and also changing demographics for our customers. Worldwide, we have an aging population that we need to recognize. Delta, for example, when yesterday they announced their new Delta One suites, every single one of them being accessible, huge applause to that. And the types of thought that's put into, for example, in controls, having tactile controls like you would have on your automobile. So you have directional controls. For those that are blind, it's very important that they not just be a series of buttons. Thinking through how a customer who is not able to see can have an accessible, really accessible business class chair or be able to understand their environment more easily is very important. But as we look towards IFE, I think what's really cool is that right now there's a limited library of what has audio description on board. You only have certain titles where it has the narrative description. That could be done by AI so long as the studio licenses it accordingly, because if you have enough liberty to have the AI agent help describe what's on the screen at the right points, if it's not it's not already been done by the studio, I think it's appropriate. If it's done by the studio, it should be that licensed copy that is utilized. And I think the other area that we tend to forget about is what to do with passengers that are deaf and can't hear an alarm or bell. I saw yesterday in Crystal Cabin Awards, we had a company saying, we'll have a message go across the screen of the mirror. And I was immediately saying, okay, I don't know how I feel about that. Like messages in text going across my mirror screen in the bathroom might be a bit questionable, but it's a novel way to make sure that every part of the aircraft is inclusive and we think it out fully.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I am aware that we are running out of time. We've got 5 minutes before we're meant to go to questions. I did want to touch on sustainability quickly. So, Nate, I know we spoke about the fact that you do something really cool with your meals that aren't or picked for no-shows. So I wondered if you wanted to tell the audience about that.
So as I mentioned, our in-flight cabin system, Altonex, is okay. So, if a passenger is no-show, who ordered in-flight meal in advance? In these cases, in-flight meal will be wasted. But our system made no-show meal automatically available for in-flight services. So we can prevent food waste. And also, so we rarely regularly check how many items is sold in each flight. For example, we have an Incheon route from Narita. It takes 1.5 hours, but we loaded 150 cans of beer in each flight. Also, it's normally sold only 2 or 3 cans. I think it is very waste of air fuel. It means that very high carbon emission. So our auto system can allow us to optimize food waste and optimize data show us how many loaded product is necessary for each flight. So we can monitor and we can optimize and to save the air fuel equal to low carbon emission. Okay.
Fabulous. Okay.
I would be really impressed by ZIPAIR if for the unsold meals, since I know you only bring hot meals for passengers that order them, you should make it a bidding war. Like, who bids the most money?
Ancillary revenue.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
there you
correct.
go.
So also we can add ancillary revenue. Yeah.
Great. And so, Eric, we had an interesting discussion too about how there's the element of sustainability that is visible to passengers, but then there's a lot of work that needs to be done kind of on the supply chain side too. So I wondered if you could speak to both of those elements quickly.
It will be difficult to answer on sustainability in a brief manner, because that is the other topic of passion for my team and me for years already, and I got some friends and collaborators also around here. So I mean, the stunning part about the cabin is that the angles at which you can tackle the topic of sustainability are just very diverse. It's the space and how you use it. It's the weight. Primary is, of course, taking the weight out, and there you get all new, let's say, opportunities with latest designs and structure or topology optimized designs. So bionic structures that allow you to put material only where you need it for the specific purpose, and get that into an industrial process. It's about the new materials. In today's modern aircraft, you can probably find several hundreds of different materials in the cabin for good reasons. But if you're serious about the sustainability and the end of life, for instance, you need to also work on that. And that needs industry collaboration. That really needs everybody to work together, even maybe cross-industry, because other sectors are also under high regulation. Automotive, medical, new energies and things like that. So I think we need industry collaboration. We need cross-industry collaboration to develop the materials of the future that allow for the high requirements for aviation. At the same time, open the box for further weight reduction and, of course, the end-of-life improvement, or let's call it end-of-use, so we can put the valuable and the precious materials back in the cycle. We're also looking into biomaterials. That's not an easy one, but it's possible to go for more and more into biomaterials and to have natural sources. There's from the sugarcane production, there are byproducts that we can use. Also in the leather field, I see a lot. So that will be also the part that will be visible to passengers. But of course, to make it visible to passengers is not the primary goal. That's a thin line to walk, because first of all, we want to have tangible improvements on the sustainability, and the life cycle assessment is giving us the indication if the after product is better than the before product. And that is then giving us an indication, and then you can make a subtle information to the passenger who's interested. But there might be new materials on the horizon who give you a different look and feel in the cabin. So there's a lot around the seats. The catering, we touched briefly upon that. The pre-ordering will probably pick up. Based on digital means, you have more feedback loop. So that's a double win if you reduce the food waste. I mean, that's less food go for waste, and it's less weight on the aircraft, so meaning translating into less emissions. So you see, it's a universe of opportunities, and literally there's nothing you can, not work on and make it even better. Yeah. But industry collaboration is at its core.
Yeah. I'm sorry we had to cut Eric off. It's very interesting, and we could talk about it for longer. 2D, I know as well, when you were talking about Flight Edge Aura, when you're designing products now, it's very much with the perspective that they are going to be able to be used for a long time, and you're not going to have to rip everything out to replace it. So I don't know if that's what you wanted to focus on when I asked you about sustainability, but maybe you could start there.
Yeah, I can start with that, and then I can touch base on a few other topics. I would say, yeah, for the in-flight entertainment, first and foremost, it's about weight, right? This is the primary impact that, unfortunately, we're bringing. So reducing the weight is, and has always been, for in-flight entertainment, paramount. So, with Flight Edge Aura, we are happy to say, and we are a bit bullish about it, that we consider we have the lightest in-flight entertainment in the world. We built it from the ground up, okay, in order to optimize every single element in the cabin, from the power box, the cables, and the display themselves, right? Second, modularity. As you said, very important to have a modular design, so that if there are some elements that either become obsolete, or for which, for example, there is a new technology that improves the weight further, then we want to bring those without having to rip apart everything. Third item, beyond modularity, repairability, right? It's also about avoiding that, if, for example, a display, our displays are extremely reliable, but if they were to fail, that you don't have to replace the entire display, that you can either replace, for example, the smartness that is inside, or the display, or, for example, the peripheral bar, right? This is how the modularity comes into place. And then there is definitely a subject around the material. As you say, in order for us to put any piece of equipment in the cabin, we need to pass very, very stringent requirements. And so as a result, there is not a lot of choice in some cases for what kind of material we can utilize. So what can we do about it? Well, one thing we can do is to avoid using virgin material for everything. And for example, introduce recycled plastics, right? Or recycled aluminum in the chain. Completely agree with you. You can only do that when you have a circular economy ecosystem in place. And aerospace needs to, I would say, integrate with, for example, other industries like automotive or others to be able to benefit from those economies of scale, if you want. I think as an industry, we're going to be pushed by the regulation. Yeah. There is this thing called digital product passport that Europe is standardizing. I think next year, any car, any EV in Europe is going to have a battery that has a DPP stamp. And this is going to become applicable to consumer electronics, to clothing, to many, many different facets. And I'm pretty sure that at one point, aerospace, our domain, is going to have to comply to it. So we need to anticipate all those, because it's a big revolution. But we need to start with baby steps, right? So first, the weight, second, the modularity, and then third, again, those recycled plastics and materials, and then those upcoming regulations.
Fabulous, thank you. I've said fabulous a lot during this session.
A lot of work. It's a lot of work to do, right?
Joe, have you got anything to add on the sustainability side?
On sustainability, I think it's so important that we need to remember that 98% of our carbon emission comes from the weight of the aircraft, and it's from the fuel that we burn. We really need to, I think a lot of the things that we're tackling are nice to haves and things we should be doing and that we will do. But what we need to do is to change the paradigm. Like, we need a major step change to move beyond the engine new games and aircraft maximization we've done for years. We've moved from a world where we're looking at, we typically look at 10 to 20% fuel gains from engine changes, but now we've pushed engines so much that the reliability that we expect from the engines, it's not making it. We're having reliability issues across the industry. So I think that new airframe types that are much more sustainable in nature, and God willing in our lifetime, having hydrogen-based aircraft will be game-changing. But the hydrogen, the more I've looked at it, the further it seems away in terms of the amount of size and scope you would need to do that. And I think we need to think of nearer-term solutions that we can impact the industry positively with.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I am very aware that it's 4:44, so we have 1 minute for questions. And my last question's gone out the window. But does anybody have anything they want to ask the guys while they're on the stage?
So thank you guys. I'm Claudia Friedrich from Zweigrat Design, a design studio here in Hamburg. And for me, in means of sustainability is how can we find a good balance between reduction in means of food or material or whatever, and I have the feeling growing requirements from the passengers.
It's a good question. Did you guys all hear?
I can try to provide my perspective. Yes, growing demand for passengers, but again, we need to provide services that make sense, for them. So, and we need to definitely work with the airlines, right? Yes, we can throw a bunch of, new in-flight entertainment, for example, in-flight entertainment devices and et cetera, but in the end, as you said, it's 98, I would even say 99% is weight, right? So we need to look at it holistically to say, okay, instead of adding things to address this and to address that, let's try to think it through, right? And really address the needs and answer it the most efficient manner.
Does anyone else want to dive in? Or did 2D do a stellar job? Eric?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting challenge, yeah. But I think the opportunity is really the awareness of the passenger for what it is good. I've seen here seat models that are trying to reduce the number of electronic actuators and motors, so you'll have to do more manually again. I think it will be acceptable to the passenger will decide what's acceptable in terms of comfort. But it's not about reducing everything. It's about doing it smarter and differently. It's about finding new ways and deploying the latest technologies to design better products that both reduce the weight and protect or even enhance the comfort. And I think there's the solution.
I have to add one thing, is I think ICAO, by announcing a limit of 2 portable battery chargers per passenger, has thrown a little bit of a loop into our industry, where we've seen so many portable power devices that airlines that don't have power on board are anticipating that their customers will bring it. And now, last week, we had our friends at Southwest Airlines announce they would only allow 1 per passenger. So this creates a really interesting scenario. Like, number one, how's that going to be enforced? Because we don't have any enforcement mechanism for that through our security systems right now. And 2, what is the end goal? If our end goal is to have people bring less batteries on board for safety reasons, which we all embrace, then we have to provide solutions for our customers. So that's the one other give and take that I didn't expect in 2026.
Yeah, actually I can comment on that. You're making me think of providing AC power to passengers is very heavy because you need a dedicated AC to AC controller, right? So going back to the airline, can the airline make the decision? Because in the end, it's up to them to make the decision. We are not going to provide AC power, neither in economy class nor in business class. And then we go from there, right? And then, as you said, people need to make their decisions. But if you want AC power, that comes with additional weight, fuel burn, not a good footprint.
There's always a trade-off, or maybe not, if Eric's blue sky future comes to fruition. Anybody else? Any last questions before we finish? Okay, I'm going to be really cheeky because I know I'm between you and your beers or whatever else you fancy drinking. I want a couple of words from each of you. 2040, what are you most excited about in the aircraft cabin? Joe, is yours hydrogen aircraft?
I am looking forward to working blended wing aircraft from all of our airframe manufacturers.
Think big, I like it. Go big or go home. 2D?
More and more digital. More and more connected or interconnected, more and more cyber secure, more and more digital, and maybe some new devices, connected glasses, AR, VR, whatever, right? So we need to, continue to look at what consumer electronics bring and try to bring as quickly as possible. Again, that cycle is reducing more and more.
Lovely, and we're on our way. You guys have told us we're on our way. So, Nate.
Okay, so continue to focusing on digital experience and eliminate customer friction. And also, I really want to try AI integrated to the all function of aviation businesses.
Fabulous, fabulous again. Eric, are you going to be able to do it in a couple of words?
So yeah, I see a cabin experience that will adapt both physically and digitally to the passenger needs. That will cater for different flexible zones in which passengers with different expectations and different needs will find the perfect place. And a talkative aircraft that will kind of serve as your digital assistant and think for you and make your comfort, make your travel even more comfortable and easy and seamless and personalized.
Well, thank you, Eric, Nate, 2D, Joe. You've all been fabulous. You guys have been fabulous. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of the day, and enjoy your evenings.